Good morning. I'm Cindy Silva, Mayor of the City of Walnut Creek, and on behalf of the Walnut Creek City Council, I want to welcome you to our 2019 Memorial Day observance. For Americans, Memorial Day should be the most important and solemn of our holidays. It is the day we remember and honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice by laying down their lives for our country. To begin, I would ask that you please stand for the presentation of colors, for the singing of the national anthem, and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, bird. Mom. Nothing okay. Okay, let's go. I'll help you. Your little hand here, but you hurt.
On this very special Memorial Day, the pledge means an especially deep feeling for me, and I hope you share it as well. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. The invocation will be delivered by Reverend Dwayne Michael, chaplain with John Muir Health, Walnut Creek.
Let us pray. Eternal Spirit, on this Memorial Day, as we are stirred by our speakers and this wonderful music, we pause to reflect upon our blessings as a nation and the high cost of these blessings. We give thanks for the freedom and security that we enjoy in this country. We remember those who have served in our armed forces of our country, risking their lives for our liberty. We remember and honor those who have given their lives in service to our country, sacrificing in such a costly way for the sake of others. We set this day apart for solemn remembrance as we consider the sacrifices of so many in our military. We pray today for the families and friends of those who have given their lives in service to our nation. May they be comforted in their grief and sadness. May they be reassured that the sacrifice of their loved ones has been the last full measure of devotion. Even as we remember those who have given their lives, we also think of those whose lives are on the line today. Protect them, encourage them, and bring them home safely. Give wisdom to the leaders of our armed forces. May their efforts bring peace with justice to our world. And guide those who lead our nation. Help them to pursue diplomatic paths that prevent needless conflict. May they have wisdom about when and how to use the military might of our great country. God of peace, stir in the hearts of the leaders of all nations the importance of not using violence to further their cause. Give them a passion for peace. Amen.
Thank you for your words this morning, and thank you also for your work in our community. It is truly, truly important and appreciated. I would also like to thank the Pleasant Hill Army Recruiting Center Color Guard for their participation today, the Walnut Creek Concert Band under the direction of Harvey Benstein, and Mayor Pro Tem Luella Haskew for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like to introduce the other members of the City Council who are here today. In addition to Luella Haskew, we have Matt Francois, Justin Waddell, and Kevin Wilk. And we also have our City Treasurer, Ron Casano. As well, I would also like to acknowledge the former Walnut Creek mayors who are with us today, and if they would please rise in the audience, just in case I missed any of them. Former Mayor Kathy Hicks, Gail Murray, and somewhere probably standing in the back, Gary Skrell. Thank you for being here. I would also like to acknowledge former Lafayette Mayor Don Tatson, who, after his retirement, decided to join the Walnut Creek Concert Band. And please welcome the following representatives of our congressional, state, and county elected officials. Representing Congressman Mark DeSaulnier, Scott Swantner, and representing Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, Gabriela Jimenez. I would also like to recognize all of the veterans who have come out this morning to help us observe Memorial Day. If you can, would you please rise? I know that every one of us who is here today truly appreciates the service you gave to our country on our behalf, so thank you. For Americans, Memorial Day is the most solemn of our holidays as we honor those who gave their lives in service to our country. Starting with the 8.5-year American Revolutionary War and continuing until today, the United States has been involved in 27 armed conflicts over our history. The most deadly, of course, was the American Civil War. Between April 1861, when the first shot was fired at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, until April 1865, when the Union and Confederate soldiers laid down their arms at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, our nation lost some 625,000 men, not only due to combat, but also due to other deaths. More American losses than those from all of our other wars combined, and 100 times more than the number of we lost during the American Revolution. The casualty figures during the Civil War were so large, nearly every American was directly touched by the conflict. Over time, the families and friends of soldiers who lost their lives began to honor the sacrifices of the fallen by spending one day each year decorating their graves. In time, entire communities began to come together on these remembrance days. What we now call Memorial Day was first observed on May 30th, 1868, when flowers were officially placed on the graves of more than 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers who were buried at Arlington National Cemetery. After that, and for the next 50 years, Memorial Day was observed every year in May, on May 30th, to honor those who had died during the Civil War. Then, after World War I, when more than 100,000 American military lost their lives, the holiday was changed to honor Americans who have fought in any war. Today marks Walnut Creek's 31st Memorial Day observance. It is a day for us to come together and to pay our respects to all who have made the ultimate sacrifice on our behalf. In particular, today is a chance for us to honor the Walnut Creek men who lost their lives while serving our country. The 32 men of our community lost during World War II, the 11 we lost during Korea, the 17 from Vietnam, and the 2 lost most recently in Iraq and Afghanistan. Memorial Day is our opportunity as a community to remember and to reflect. It is an opportunity for us to stand with the families of those we've lost, and it is an opportunity for us to join with our war veterans as they pay tribute to their fallen comrades and friends. Our keynote speaker this morning is eminently qualified to help us reflect on the meaning of Memorial Day and on the meaning of Memorial Day in Walnut Creek. A 22-year veteran of the United States Navy, retired Captain Art Oller, is also a longtime resident of Walnut Creek and a local community volunteer. Born into a Navy family, Captain Oller enlisted in the Naval Reserve while he was at Princeton University. Then following graduation, he entered Officer Candidate School and was commissioned an ensign in the Supply Corps in 1973. After completing Supply Corps School and Submarine School, Captain Oller served 5 strategic patrols aboard the submarine USS Tecumseh. He subsequently served at the Naval Supply Center, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Upon his release from active duty in 1979, Captain Oller served in the Naval Reserve until 1995. Captain Oller has an MBA from Cal, and until his recent retirement, he worked in finance at Chevron Corporation. He and his wife, Lee, have lived in Walnut Creek for more than 30 years, and among his pursuits, he is a member of Walnut Creek's Park Recreation and Open Space Commission. Please help join me in welcoming Captain Arthur Oller.
Thank you, Mayor Silva. Today is a day for remembrance and reflection. Across the country, it's a day when many citizens fly our flag from their front porch or balcony. A day when flags grace the headstones of those buried in military cemeteries. A day when a wreath is laid at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington National Cemetery to honor all those who died in wars we fought, but whose remains were never identified. There are also days of memorial for those who never made it home to the United States, remembered in many cases by the people of the countries where our fighters died and were buried, or by visitors or family members from the United States, often on the anniversary of the battle. Today we pay special recognition to those we lost during World War II, and particularly to those who died on the beaches of Normandy or other support of the D-Day invasion 75 years ago on June 6, 1944. Over 150,000 Allied troops were involved in Operation Overlord, the code name for the invasion. It is estimated that 3,400 U.S. service members died or were missing in action on that fateful day. We also honor those who fought for us during World War II, including the more than 15 United States World War II veterans who are with us at today's ceremony. Among this distinguished group is Captain Charles Sapper, who was a pilot in the U.S. Army Air Corps. He and his crew of 9 flew 2 runs in the early morning hours of June 6th over Omaha Beach, dropping bombs that would create foxholes to provide some level of protection for the thousands of soldiers coming ashore in landing craft just a few hours later. Also here with us today are veterans of that war, including retired U.S. Navy Commander Dean S. Laird, a fighter pilot. Commander Laird is a veteran of 3 wars. During World War II, he was the only Navy pilot who shot down enemy planes in both the European and Pacific theaters. U.S. Army Corporal William Armstrong, who spent more than a month in the trenches of Belgium and Luxembourg, the Battle of the Bulge, some 6 months after the D-Day invasion. U.S. Petty Officer Al Giordano, who served on a supply ship in the Pacific, supporting the campaign of New Guinea and the battles of Guadalcanal, Guinea, and Saipan. Long-term residents of Walnut Creek, Dick Ingraham and Louis Boswell, both of whom were members of the Timberwolves, the 104th Infantry Division that liberated the Nordhausen concentration camp. For some families, in more recent times, it's a day not just once a year, but every day since their doorbell rang and a person in uniform told them the tragic news of their loved one lost in Iraq or Afghanistan or other conflict zones. For these Gold Star families, every day is Memorial Day. My wife and I were recently visiting her family in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We were driving through the neighborhood on a Sunday afternoon when I noticed a house with a large flag flying in the front yard and about a dozen Jeeps and cars jammed into a long driveway. I asked my brother-in-law, what was their story of the family? He explained that one of the sons had been recently killed in combat in Afghanistan, and how the family gathers every Sunday to honor their son. He went on to say that the family's loss is well known in the neighborhood. I thought about that family when I was asked to be here today to talk about Memorial Day. And I thought about our family and our military service. In our family, we had many serve in the armed forces. My father and his brother were both career naval officers, as was my cousin. Other uncles and grandparents served, but none of them were killed in combat or died during active duty. Several family members are buried in Arlington. While my parents and grandparents certainly had friends or acquaintances who were killed in combat during World War II, Korea, or Vietnam. I don't know what it's like to lose a family member in a war. I also thought about my in-laws' comment about the neighborhood being aware of the family's loss. In the day or two after the Sunday, every time we drove by the Gold Star family's house, I thought of their loss. Probably every day a neighbor drives or walks by, they think about the family's loss. Memorial Day after Memorial Day. And not just the last Monday in May. How we recognize and remember those who died in our armed forces happens on many levels. As citizens, we honor the day, sometimes in simple gestures such as flying the flag. As families, we may gather together to deal with a loss like the family in Michigan. As a community, we support and console or lift up those who mourn. As a nation, we come together with the single purpose of paying tribute. It is a day that touches every one of us. Those who we remember today are in effect still serving. They have never stopped serving. By being in our thoughts, they strengthen us and connect us, as they are doing today here in Walnut Creek. Their service may have started years, decades, or even more than a century ago, but it continues through this special day we set aside for them. Thank you.
thank you, Captain Oller, for sharing your thoughts with us about the meaning of Memorial Day. And I also want to thank you for recognizing some of the World War II veterans here today, particularly on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy. America's involvement in World War II was less than 4 years, quite short in comparison to more recent conflicts. Yet, unlike these recent military conflicts and involvements, some 16 million Americans served in World War II, or about 12% of the U.S. population. Today, fewer than 400,000 of those who served in World War II are still alive. So, if you are a World War II veteran and you are here today and you are able, would you please rise so that we can thank you for your service? Thank you. You may be seated. And we're going to introduce these gentlemen more formally to you all. So, Captain Oller. We're going to start with the Navy Commander. Commander Laird, we are so delighted that you are here with us today and that you live in Walnut Creek. And you know what? You don't need to stand again if you don't want to, because I understand. You've had many, many days in a fighter pilot jet, so I'm sure we're fine. Thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for being here today to help us remember those that we've lost. Mr. Gorley, thank you for being here this morning. I believe you were in the U.S. Army, is that correct? Navy, oh my gosh, we had the whole conversation, didn't we? And then you were in Sea Scouts and in Sea Patrol work, so thank you for your work. Mr. Woodman, thank you for being here today. It was delightful to meet you this morning. Mr. Armstrong, you have a very famous TV show, don't you, on our Walnut Creek TV about you and your wife and how you met at the end of World War II. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your work in the Army and for the very cold winter you spent at the Battle of the Bulge. This is Bob Sutherland. Bob and I have known each other about 20 years. You play a mean trumpet. Has it been that long? Yes, how time flies when we're having fun. I didn't know until a few days ago that you were a sergeant in the Army Air Corps. Thank you for your service and for being here today. Mr. John Gordon, thank you for being here. I understand you were in the U.S. Navy for most of the war and in the Pacific, and you were actually at Pearl Harbor, so thank you for being here. Dr. Boswell, it's so nice to meet you officially. Thank you for your work, and you and your cohort sitting in the row behind you, you both can't stand, we're actually in the timber rolls together in the 104th Infantry. And so you did wonderful work. I believe you came in through Normandy after the invasion, probably near August timeframe, and then moved across northern France and into Belgium and Luxembourg, but eventually ended up in Germany and liberating the Nordhausen concentration camp, as well as finding some POWs that had been released from a different concentration camp that you saved them. So thank you very much for your work. Dick Ingram, I'm so happy to see you here today, and thank you for helping me find many of these World War II veterans and for your service in the Army during World War II. these certificates stick together. Oh, okay, they met the Russians on the Elba River as well. Hopefully made a few friends that time. Didn't we all? Captain Sapper. I am so happy that you are here today. Captain Sapper is the U.S. Army Air Corps pilot who flew 2 runs over Normandy beaches on the morning of D-Day, dropping bombs not only to create the foxholes on the beach, but also to create some havoc up on the cliffs as well. Thank you so much for your service and for being a member of this community for a very long time. So this is, I know him as Pastor Williams, isn't that correct? It's nice to see you again. Member of Kiwanis, longtime resident of Walnut Creek. You helped put up the gazebo. Well, thank you. So we can honor you today. Okay, we're honoring for putting up the gazebo. Thank you very much for being here. It's very nice to meet you, and thank you so much for being here. What branch of the service were you in? You were a member of the Navy. That's great. And Mr. Giordano, it's so nice to have you here, and thank you for your service to our country. And there is a photo of the Enola Gay on the island of Tinian. So you were a member of the Navy, were you not? Supply ships. So you might want to come over and meet him afterward. Mr. Catalano, thank you for being here today. You were a member of the Army, were you not?
37th Division, stationed in the Philippines.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here to help us remember those we lost.
I helped liberate prisoners of war in the Capadocia one in the Philippines.
Mr. White, thank you so much. You and I met again yesterday at a memorial service, and you were in the Merchant Marines and then eventually in the Army as well. So thank you so much for being here today. All right, who's hiding out in the audience? It's a World War II veteran. Are there any others that we missed? I just want to say hello and meet you. I feel like I'm running a talk show here.
Who's in the invasion of Luzon, the Philippines.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you for helping us honor our veterans and our those we've lost. Okay, hopefully I'm not walking all the way to Concord. Good morning. I'm Cindy Silva, and you are? Jeremy Gary. It's very nice to meet you, and thank you very much for being here and helping us remember those we lost.
There are 6 soldiers that are talking on television, and their experiences are no different than mine was, and they from all over the world. So if you can see them.
Thank you very much. Please join me in giving our World War II veterans another round of applause. And of course, we want to honor and thank all of our veterans. So for all of our veterans, please rise. and we're going to honor all of our veterans with the playing of the traditional Armed Forces Salute. As the band plays its tribute to each of the branches of the military, we invite our veterans to wave, clap, stand, and of course sing along.
The Army.
Eternal Spirit, bless all that has been shared here today. We give thanks for the opportunity to remember as a community, for the blessings of the words of our speakers, for the music that has stirred and reinforced our memories of those that have died. May we continue to be unified in our resolve to not forget the sacrifices made as we continue to share in the resulting legacies of freedom, security, and democracy. Go in peace. Amen.
Before we adjourn to Veterans Memorial Plaza, I would like to again thank Captain Oller, the Reverend Michael, our World War II veterans, the Walnut Creek Concert Band under the direction of Harvey Benstein, Pleasant Hill Army Recruiting Center Color Guard, and the Boy Scout Troop 810. And of course, I want to thank all of you for being here today. We will now begin the transition to Veterans Memorial Plaza, where we will pay tribute to Walnut Creek's own and complete this Memorial Day observant. As the band plays its final number, the Color Guard will retire the wreath and will lead all of us in a procession to the Memorial Plaza across the street. Once we are gathered at the plaza, the Color Guard will place the memorial wreath at the base of the American flag, after which we will read aloud each of the names of the 62 Walnut Creek men who gave their lives in service to our country. After the reading of the names, the Color Guard will then lower the flag to half-staff. Color Guard, please prepare to retire the wreath and lead us to Memorial Plaza. Since 1941 and the start of World War II, 62 men from Walnut Creek have given their lives in service to our country. We will now read their names. From World War II, Sidney Lawrence Bottomley, Beverly Annis, Bruce Annis, Warner Clark Jr., John Cluen, Delbert Day DeBishop, Leonard L. DeChant, Morris B. Eakins, John L. Fry, Theodore B. Gallagher, Orrin E. Gray, Iva Lee Gray Jr., Robert E. Green Jr., Robert B. Hanson, Coatsworth B. Head Jr., Richard C. Henderson, William G. Jessup, Burson W. Joseph, George A. Youngjohann, David J. Lawrence, John O. Matthias Jr., Francis W. McCready, Ford H. Myers, Stephen H. Norse, Steve Piona, Aubrey E. Price, William S. Prensa, James D. Richards, Richard Stratton, George Teixeira, Henry J. Tiedemann Jr., James B. Treadway, George E. Williams, Louis E. Winkler. From Korean War, Victor P. Beauchamp Jr., Gene E. Evans, Robert D. Gilardi, Danny R. Green, Glenn F. Gregg Jr., John W. Hansard, Paul E. Kremser, Russell A. Moorcroft, Leslie D. Opp, Louis W. Seymour Jr., Lloyd Thomas. From the Vietnam War, Rene G. Bauman, Robert A. Burgess, John P. Burke, Robert S. Croak, Richard Curtis, Fred J. Hayes, James R. Kohler, Wayne K. Lane, Ernest F. Lawrence, Bruce F. McMillan, William E. Nelson, David A. Oberle, Robert J. Riley Jr., Jerry V. Ryan, Frank C. Torres Jr., David R. Turner, James P. Young, and from Iraq and the Afghanistan wars, James J. Kuhn and Sean Langevin. We will now lower the flag to half-staff. Thank you very much for helping us remember those we've lost and for being here for this Memorial Day observance. Have a good day.